Throughout history, white people have done some pretty bad things. You know, slavery, the KKK, the Holocaust, apartheid. That was a long time ago, right? The laws are different now, right? Abraham Lincoln and Nelson Mandela freed the slaves and gave them rights. The races are totally equal now, right? Well, yes, theoretically. Racism is not legal anymore, but it still exists. Ridiculous! How can it exist if it's illegal? Well, cocaine, for example, is also illegal. But it exists. Racism exists in several forms, like active racism, passive racism, and systematic racism. Active racism is when someone is outspoken about their racism, like James here. James is an active racist. Passive racism is when someone is aware of racism, but they ignore it, like Jenny. No man, Jenny. Systematic racism is how the structure of society itself is quite racist. You know all those racist structures of the past, like apartheid and slavery? Yeah. They left white people with a lot more money and power than non-white people, and most of that money and power got passed down through several generations of white people and hasn't really been equally distributed yet. So today, racism is not legal, but white people still actually have more money and power. So even though we have racial equality in theory, we don't have it in practice. So you see, Earth is saying that they're equal, but it's thinking that they're not equal. Okay, it's a bad diagram. So, racism exists, but what's white privilege? Well, we've already established that white people are more likely to have more money. That's simply a fact. This also means that statistically, white people are more likely to own property, more likely to be educated, more likely to be employed, and generally have a higher quality of life. That's one part of it. Now, because we live in a consumer culture that revolves around money, and because white people have more money, most consumer products are designed with white people in mind as the default target market. And that's why this color is called nude. 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 Nude for who, though, specifically? White people. Or how about music? For every successful Rihanna, there's a Britney, and a Christina, and a Lana, and a Taylor, and an Iggy, and a Miley, and a Megan, and a Kesha, and like 15 Katy Perrys. Or even movies. I mean, just watch the Oscars. They're frickin' white. You have to admit, pop culture is whitewashed, and that sucks if you're not white. So you see, non-white people live in a world that subtly excludes them in thousands of tiny ways every single day, because white skin is seen as the default, the norm, the preferred. And this fact also affects the way others treat white people, from making kinder assumptions about their lives, to giving white criminals more lenient prison sentences for the same crimes, and assuming that white people are more likely to be in charge.
Hi, can I speak to your manager?
I am the manager.
Oh!
All of this basically adds up to white privilege. This is when people will assume that because one is white, one is also rich, educated, and trustworthy. And whether that's true or not, that still kind of makes them treat one better. And so white people have the luxury of being able to believe that racism doesn't exist, simply because one doesn't experience it oneself.
I've experienced racism.
No, Maureen, you haven't! You haven't. Oh my god, Lady Aria Grey, I hear you say. Why are you trying to make me feel so guilty for being white? I'm not. You, specifically, are not responsible for the world's history of racism. Probably. But because of history, racism is rooted into the very flowerbed of society. And if you ignore it, you are part of the problem. See, this person is perpetuating racism by ignoring the racism flower. The flower is a metaphor for racism. What we need to do first is be aware of racism in all its forms, and then make a conscious effort to alter our daily thoughts and actions, and uproot the evil flower. Yeah, guys, so that's basically how to solve racism. Hashtag whitesplaining, hashtag mansplaining, hashtag dragsplaining. You're welcome.